Hey, you're keeping company with Connor, and you're listening to another Town Square Spotlight. Really excited about this episode. We've had her on for our sister program, In Touch, and now it's exciting that we get to transition her over to Spotlights, which is really, really cool. With us today, we have Rebekkah Smith Aldrich, Executive Director of the Mid-Hudson Library System, MHLS for short. They got a lot of really cool things happening with end of summer, going into the fall, back to school. A lot of good things when it comes to education, the arts, and entertainment, but also being prepared for certain things, especially when you got the weather that we had this last week. Holy cow. So, without further ado, Rebekkah, how are you?
I'm great, Connor. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. So I'm really happy to have you on. It's been a while since we had you on In Touch, but for those who didn't get to hear that episode or just need a refresher on what exactly the Mid-Hudson Library System is and what a library system is in general, do you mind giving us a brief overview, please?
Yeah, happy to. It's a pretty unique organization. There's only 23 in New York State, but we're a cooperative. So we work with 66 libraries across 5 counties, Columbia, Greene, Dutchess, Ulster, and Putnam, to find cost efficiencies and to break down barriers for service to the general members of the public. We have over 600,000 folks living in this region. More than half of them have library cards. There's lots of efficiencies we can find by working together. So while all those libraries across the Hudson Valley are independent, they come together to find solutions by working together. So we're able to keep costs down for local taxpayers. So for example, we do physical delivery. So all the libraries across the region share all their stuff with all the residents of the Hudson Valley, and then we deliver it from building to building. It saves taxpayers about $4.5 million a year. That's just one example of about 17 service points we have to help libraries, regardless of how small or how much money they have, be able to provide modern library services to the people of the Hudson Valley. So we've been around for 65 years. It's our 65th anniversary, which we're really proud of. And we love working with our member libraries because they're really homegrown. They're really about what their local community needs. And so finding those trends across the valley where we can come in and help out and make things easier for staff or to reduce the costs on something, it's a really good use of the state tax money that we get to run the organization.
That's really important. And also, congratulations on the 65th anniversary. That's neat. I didn't realize that. That's so cool to be able to have. And it just goes to show you the legacy that you guys have been able to build in this area. And I feel like this really brings libraries into the modern day. I remember when I was a kid, I was kind of afraid of libraries. I thought they were old. I thought they were stingy. I just thought it's just like, I don't want to go in it. But it's really amazing. It's really amazing to see how libraries are so modernized, how beautiful some of the buildings are, some of the infrastructure, the technology, the way that they're able to work with each other. I think that's great that you're able to share and deliver. That's really cool. And there are how many libraries exactly in this system again across all the counties?
Yeah, we have 66 across the 5 counties, going out of 70 buildings. A couple of them have branches because they serve larger areas. But, your comment about, being a little maybe intimidated or feeling like it wasn't friendly when you were a kid, that's certainly not the case anymore. We are like a go-to destination, particularly over the summer. We find that families are just drawn to libraries like crazy. We have these wonderful programs. We call them in general summer reading programs. And there's, the broccoli of the program is to help kids stay engaged with reading across the summer. But the libraries have become so inventive with how they get kids engaged with learning and being together and really having experiential learning going on across the summer and giving families low cost and free opportunities across the summer to keep their kids active and engaged and meeting other kids across the community they might not know otherwise. So, I was doing a little survey of our libraries. They were doing their kickoff parties in the first part of the summer, and I saw these crazy parties they were having at the libraries. Like folks were coming to do rock climbing and like bubble parties, and it was just, the kickoff to this great program that we have hundreds and thousands of kids across the valley participating in all summer long. So now I'm getting invited to all the closeout parties, which the big theme is ice cream, I've noticed.
Nice.
But I really think it changes the relationship young kids have with their library in the year 2024 that maybe you and I had as kids.
Yeah, where was that when I was a kid?
I know.
Jeez, that sounds great. Wait, can I go rock climbing now, though, on whatever these things are?
I think you don't. You're a little above the height requirement.
I'm a little above the height.
parties.
Okay, that's
yeah.
understandable. No worries. But that's so neat and that's so innovative. And that's a great way to be able to engage. Libraries are so much more than just a place where books can gather dust. They're not gathering dust. People are there. People are engaging. And it's all well kept. And the fact that you have all of these really cool, God, rock climbing, that one really threw me for a loop. That's pretty neat. But that's awesome that you have these kind of things. I also want to talk about some of the other things that you have in there. You say you have different reading engagements and sometimes you have guests. Can you talk about some of the people or activities that you bring in that might be traveling around or people who are around the area that you're looking to highlight and then help engage? Could you talk about that and any of your favorites or unique things that have happened throughout the summer?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in years past, and people might have nostalgic memories of libraries of old days, it was really book centric, that physical book. And what we've seen over the past 20, 25 years is this expansion of the understanding of how people learn and how people grow through exposure to information, education, entertainment. So programming at libraries has exploded across the Hudson Valley. I think in the first decade I worked here, it had increased by 200% the number of folks that were coming through the doors for programs, maybe not even taking a book out, because some people learn by reading, some by hearing, some by doing. And so the new programs we're seeing libraries do are really speaking to those other types of learning styles, people who like to hear an expert speak about something or to experience. A lot of kids, they learn by doing. And so we're seeing folks bring together programs that are just fantastic. So a couple that I'm really in love with, we have a library up in Columbia County, the Claverack Library. They do an engineering program for kids. So they're learning how to build things and understanding how physics work, and they're just having fun doing it. They barely know they're learning while they're alongside a local engineer who's teaching them this stuff. The Rhinecliff Library here in Dutchess County, they have this phenomenal maker space. So kids are coming in and learning how to sew, how to repair things, how to do upcycled crafts and reuse things in their community. The inventiveness, the creativity is just phenomenal. Down in Putnam County, they also have a maker space, one of the first libraries in the area to do that kind of work. They have a hydroponic garden in the library, like stuff you would never imagine, but it catches the kids' fancy, right? They're like, oh, what is that? I got to learn more. And that's the whole idea, is to engage kids with the outside world so they understand how nature works, how society works, how they are a part of a civic and civil society. And it's all done through really engaging programs. And we have just this wonderful host of folks from around the Hudson Valley, musicians like yourself that come in and do concerts at libraries. We've got experts in local history coming in. The Putnam County Library Association is doing this fabulous series on local history. Like, I just need to clone myself so I can go to all these programs because they're so interesting. There was just a program up in Ulster County about the Ashokan Reservoir and how that came to be. Like, it's history of the Hudson Valley that folks that are newer to the area have no idea about. So I think that not only for kids, but adults too are finding themselves really engaged and interested in stuff the libraries have to offer. And sometimes the programs are the gateway, like, the Ashokan Reservoir program. And then, well, I want to learn more about how reservoirs are made. Well, cool, we've got books on that. We've got a database where you can read articles about that. So it's a new way for folks to engage with what their library has to offer. But programming is huge across all the libraries in the Hudson Valley.
That's amazing. You guys are your own event space more than anything else, and I think that's awesome. I think when you have the exposure to something, it makes people more receptive to it. I think when you're more hands-on, people are going to be more receptive to it. And my girlfriend, she's not from this area. She's more the Schenectady area, but this weekend, for example, I took her to the Statsburg mansions and estates and all that, so we checked that out. And that was her first time doing the tour, so it was new to her. But then also for me, it was like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, I lived here my whole life. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. And it's amazing. It just goes to show you what you can still learn about your hometown and the area, which I think is phenomenal.
And Connor, one of the things I'll just share, excuse me.
No, go for it.
The other cool thing is the libraries aren't building centric as much anymore. So while definitely you're coming to the library location to check out books or come to many of the programs they offer, there's also digital collections.
Yes.
Most of the libraries now have museum pass programs, so you can without paying. You can borrow a museum pass and go visit the Intrepid down in the city, or go to Mass MoCA, or like the Clark. Like, you can go to all these amazing museums thanks to the relationships between libraries and museums in the region. So I think also understanding that the world isn't just at the library, we're helping to open doors across the valley to other experiences.
Oh my God. See, I'm learning. I didn't realize that about the museum passes. Jeez. Okay, yeah, no, I'm going to have to get in on that. I was just talking about Mass MoCA with a friend of mine, so how we needed to get out there again. It's been a while. Amazing. That is so, so cool. And I really like the idea of going to see some of those museums, grabbing those museum passes, especially because we have back to school coming up, and people are going to be learning, and people are going to be back in the classroom. And some people, some classes will have their field trips, but then if you want to do it as a family or a group or however you want to break things up, you guys really are back to school centric with a lot of things going on, and you're a great way for people to save money and resources during that time. So if you could please get into that for me, talk about how the Mid-Hudson Library System can help with that back to school transition.
Well, thanks so much for asking that, Connor, because I think really, we always say the library card is one of the smartest school supplies you can get.
Yeah.
Because not only is it opening the door to, the reading materials and research that your kid might be doing, depending on how old they are, but it's also addressing a pretty big issue here in the Hudson Valley that folks are a little blind to, in my opinion. Over 118,000 kids in the Hudson Valley do not have broadband access to the internet at home. Yeah. And when you think about the school experience today, most of the classroom access to the homework, the parents' interaction with teachers is being done through online portals. The ability for kids to access the databases their library has or do research online. For those 118,000 kids, the library is their number one point of free internet access to do their homework. So we're just talking about the basics of thriving in a school setting these days. So the public library really becomes the school library after school hours, on the weekends, and it becomes that augmented resource for families that are looking to help make sure their kids succeed in school these days. It's highly competitive in the Hudson Valley. We've got a lot of families very focused on student success, which is awesome. But seeing what those resources are, you've got to have your public library card to make sure you're getting access to the other reading materials you might need, the technology you might need to try out things, to get your service hours in if you're an honors student and you're going for your getting your final capstone projects in. Libraries are great places to do your service projects. We have this cool program coming up in October. It's across the Hudson Valley. It's called the Great Give Back. It's on October 19th. Every single library in the Mid-Hudson area is hosting a service project, so people from their community can come together and do good for their neighbors. Some are doing river cleanup, some are donating food to pantries. We've got 3 libraries doing pet adoption events, which are super popular. But really, that you want your kids out and about and experiencing and learning together, but also there's that very serious nature of the core basics, getting your homework done. How do I get this book in my kids' hands? Your public library card can solve a lot of those problems.
That's incredible. And you said that's October when?
October 19th. It's a Saturday. Yep, across the Hudson Valley. It's actually across New York State now, which is pretty cool.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. And one thing that you were talking about there, and I just want to really highlight this in case it hasn't been very specifically mentioned. You say about having the library card, having that available to be able to get these resources. Now, having a library card, and please correct me if I'm wrong, having a library card with the Mid-Hudson Library System means that you can go to any of those libraries in the system, right? That does not just limit you to your local library. That gives you just about anyone in the system, correct?
A+, Connor. You can go in the door of any of those 70 buildings. You can access the digital collections of all 66 libraries. You've got access to a phenomenal amount, literally millions of titles, thanks to these libraries working together. Your library card opens the door to all of that. Every single building, every single library's digital collections. It's right at your fingertips.
Amazing. I just wanted to make sure, just in case that wasn't specifically said already, I wanted to highlight. I know myself, I have I think 3 or 4 libraries within the library system within a 15-minute radius of me. So, that's helpful. And I know I'm not the only one. So there you go. And then, as I was growing up too, my internet wasn't all that great. I remember when I was, when I was in high school, this would be after library hours, so I couldn't go to the library. But I remember like going to McDonald's just to use the free Wi-Fi there. Yeah. I can speak from experience how that is so necessary to be able to have that kind of access. I think that's big. And I definitely post-pandemic too. I remember when I was in college, you have all the college resources, but then when the pandemic hit, everybody was sent back home and nobody was on the same playing field anymore. At least when they were on campus, you're able to have access to all that stuff. And then it showed the disparities and the levels of where everybody was. That's right. And we still see that today. We're still seeing that 4 years later. And
in the early days of the pandemic, we had folks, teachers were teaching out of the trunk of their car in library parking lots because the Wi-Fi access was better than at home. So we were actually able to boost the Wi-Fi signals on 44 of the buildings in the Hudson Valley area. So 44 of the libraries have boosted Wi-Fi signals that go at least 100 yards out from the building to make sure the parking lots are covered after hours, to make sure we're broadening that access to the internet, because it is very hard to get through modern life without access to the internet.
It is
from
now.
Banking to school to just the basics we need to do to get through life. You need that access, and libraries are a really good gap filler in the areas in the Hudson Valley where broadband is not available or is kind of spotty, or the connections just really aren't at the speeds that people need for modern conveniences.
No, amazing. No, I think that's great, and also really happy to hear about the distance that gets. I remember sitting on the front porch of like Barnes and Noble in Poughkeepsie trying to get their Wi-Fi like after they closed a couple times. So that's awesome that you have that available. The resources are truly endless, and to really hone that in, want to talk about what you guys got coming up in September. September is National Preparedness Month, and you guys have this wonderful program, Library of Local. And it just goes to show you, like the last weekend that we had with the horrible weather, you got to be prepared for just about anything. Hopefully we don't see too much more of that for the rest of the year, but you never know. And the library is able to offer a lot more than just books, digital media, and online access. So could you get into National Preparedness Month and the Library of Local for us?
Yeah, I mean, one of the huge trends we've identified across the Hudson Valley is the concern residents have about climate change and how it's impacting the rainfall in the Hudson Valley, heat waves in the Hudson Valley, and some concerns we have about rising sea levels, what that's going to do to the salinity of the Hudson River even. So both short and acute, as well as long-term problems that we can see happening with the weather across the Hudson Valley. So we had a really wonderful partnership with the Partners for Climate Action Hudson Valley. They helped us get a program off the ground called the Library of Local across 17 of our libraries. And you can go to libraryoflocal.org to learn all about this. But these libraries specialize in collections related to climate solutions and food security and soon disaster preparedness, helping libraries connect with experts across the Hudson Valley from the state Citizen Preparedness Corps training, where you get a free go bag to figure out how to get together as a family and make sure everyone, including your pets, are safe. So we really see the libraries as a catalyst for community resilience, understanding how to leverage collections developed in a certain way. These collections also include seed libraries. They're lending gardening tools. So really empowering people to learn together of how to be more resilient together locally and not expect someone to come from on high and save us in these moments, but really develop that resiliency locally and understanding that at the end of the day, if we can strengthen the social fabric of community so we have more respect and empathy and understanding for each other, we're going to be just fine because we can work together and figure out the solutions to the most common problems our towns are facing. So the Library of Local is a conceptual model we've been piloting now for 3 years, and it's wildly popular. The programs are outrageously popular. People love learning how to can food, preserving food, learning some of the old ways of doing things.
Yeah.
Like if you're a fan of the show Alone, like learning bushcraft and how to identify edible foods in the forest, and like really getting back to the land and understanding how nature works for and with us. So I think this is a real growth area for our libraries in the Hudson Valley, and it's just drawing new and really interesting partners to our world every single day. We have more than 50 new partnerships thanks to this program, from the Cornell Cooperative Extensions in each county to local folks that are, expert beekeepers, master preservers, like just the folks in our communities that are really good at this stuff are connecting with their local libraries and teaching their neighbors what they know. And that's really a beautiful thing.
That is a beautiful thing. This may be a hot take. I might get some heat for this, but I feel like there's a lot of people in, the culture, not just like Hudson Valley, not just New York, but there's a big victim complex issue that a lot of people have where it's woe is me, and they're waiting for somebody to come in and swoop it and fix it instead of taking things into their own hands. And what it sounds like is that MHLS really gives people the accountability and the ability to really give themselves the confidence, the strength, the resources, and the abilities to learn and grow as themselves so they can be their own heroes, and that they can be their own way of getting themselves out of some really tough spaces, whatever that might be, whether it's current or help in a preventative way. And I think that's incredible. Knowledge is power. Wisdom is power. Having all those experiences is power. And it's just an endless opportunity. It's a well of opportunity. That's what this just seems to be. Rebekkah, this is awesome. You're awesome. This entire program is awesome. And I feel more people need to be involved as it is. You said you have great numbers already, but let's get everybody. So how can people in the Hudson Valley learn more about MHLS and find out their local branches?
Yeah, our first recommendation is go check out your local library's website. Connect with your local library, and it's seriously going to open up the doors to everything we just talked about here today. And Connor, I couldn't have said it better, how you just described what libraries can be for people. We call them empowerment engines. Everyone's got different aspirations in this world, whether as an individual, a family member, or a neighbor in a larger community. And the library can be what you need it to be to figure out your next steps on your own path. So starting at your local library is the exact right spot to go. That's where you can get your local library card that's going to help you get access to all the stuff we talked about here today.
Terrific. And of course, for MHLS as a whole, there is a website for that where people can find that directory as well, correct?
Yeah, so if you go to midhudson.org, you'll see a list of our member libraries, as well as some of the resources we offer for the public, including our brand new shared library catalog, which is for us geeky library people, a really big deal. And we now have a modern library catalog, so you can search across all those buildings, both the physical and digital collections, as well as access cool online resources like ebooks, downloadable audiobooks, e-magazines, language learning database, all sorts of cool stuff. So yeah, midhudson.org. If you're not quite sure which is your library, you can figure it out from there.
Amazing. Now, we're just in the last couple of minutes of this. We got to wrap up, unfortunately. But Rebekkah, thank you so much for being here on this Town Square Spotlight. I'm so glad that we could put a spotlight on all this. As we wrap up, do you have any last little nugget for those listening here in the Hudson Valley?
Well, Connor, first of all, I want to say thank you for making space and time for the library community on this show. It's such a valuable resource to all of us. So thank you. First of all, that's the first thing I want to say. And really, I think the same thing I said at the last time you and I chatted is just encourage people to go check out your library. I think it might surprise you if you haven't been there in a while. It's a pretty cool place.
Honestly, this episode alone has brought more surprises than I was expecting out of this. I thought I was pretty well informed. I was not, but that's why we have this program, to learn and grow, just like with you guys and everything that you got going on. And again, check out the Mid-Hudson Library System. Check out your local branches. Find that all out. You can get that online. We'll have all the links and information in the description of this episode. Rebekkah, thank you so much for being here on this Town Square Spotlight.
Awesome. Thank you, Connor. I appreciate you.
Of course. And